Hello, everyone. Welcome to Women Talk Construction. I'm Angela Gardner, one of your co hosts, and I'm with Christy Powell, my other co
Hey,
host. How are you today, Christy?
good, good.
Yay,
Glad it's
yay.
Friday.
I know. And, it's almost the fall. Yay. I know. And we have a wonderful guest with us here today. And it happens to be Inclusion Week as well. So her name is Carrie, and she is with Baker Construction, and we are so excited. I found her on LinkedIn, and she wrote this really cool post. So if you don't follow her on LinkedIn, you need to, and check her out. So welcome, Carrie.
Welcome,
Thank you,
Carrie.
ladies. Very excited to be here.
We're excited to have you.
Share with our audience a little bit more about what you do at Baker and just your role.
Okay, great. So Baker Construction, just for a little bit of background of who we are, before I get into the role of what I do here, is we are the nation's leading concrete contractor. And so we have multiple offices across the country. We have four major segments that we work in. And most proud, we have about 8,000 coworkers, which is
Mm,
kind of definitely the backbone of our company and who we are. So I always have to plug that because we are a people company that just happens to pour concrete. And so
Nice.
I've been with Baker for about 20 years. I know, crazy, right? 20 years, but yeah, it's been 20 years. And started in the field, came up. My longest stint was running the Southeast region operations from a P&L standpoint. And then last December, got tapped on the shoulder to move into our chief people and strategy officer. And so
Nice.
definite shift and responsibilities and new to the role. So very excited about it, but that's kind of currently what I'm focused on.
very nice. And we
Yes.
heard that you're a mom in construction. And I've written posts about that because Christy and I are both moms in construction, and it matters a lot to us that our companies support us,
Mm-hmm.
being able to be a mom as well. So let's dive right into that topic with you because you're a mom as well. How do you do it? And how does your company feel
Uh,
about you being a mom in construction as well?
I don't know that I do it, frankly, right? It's always this like, how am I doing? I have so many balls and which one, how am I on and which one am I most
Mm-hmm.
engaged in? Because we talk about balance all the time and it's not a perfect
Mm,
balance.
Mm-mm.
But it's more about how engaged are you in the little time that you have in either one of the spaces. And so I think how do we do it? We just do it. It's almost like there's not a choice because you love your kids so much and you want to do the best for
mm,
them as a parent. Also passionate about my company and my role, and so there isn't anything besides just um, passion and determination to make sure I do the
mm,
best of both worlds, and they collide, right? So I will say
Mm-hmm.
my boys. I have two boys and three stepdaughters, and they all know I love what I do, and so
mm,
Yeah.
they also have grown up with this is just the way life is, and they appreciate it. So they also are part of it of juggling.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole tribe that juggles career and parenthood for sure. But the company, we we very much value family. We are a
mm,
family-owned business that's going into the second generation, and so I think whether it's moms or dads, we really just want to make sure that our coworkers feel like they have the opportunity to pick their family first because it is who we are and what we do. And we
Mm-hmm.
spend so much time with our coworkers, more time than we do with our families.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do know when you get that little bit of time that it's precious, and so there's
mm.
tons of support around that. Core values are very much around one of them's people, and that means all of your
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
That's
I love
great.
that. I love that. The comment that you made about this is just how it is, right? It really makes a difference. Both my girls were reading blueprints at the age of
Mm-hmm.
13. So just because I thought, hey, this is going to be good for them to know, right? They might build a house someday. They may be in construction. They may love what I do. They didn't love what I did, and that's okay. They're both pursuing careers in the medical field, but the fact that they learned a skill at an early age, I think was important. But I love that
Oh
they've
yeah.
always been like respectful of the fact that mom loves her job. And, like they'll check with me, hey, is this a good time? Or are you stressed out? Or, what's going on right now? I've got something really that I want to talk to you about. And it's not like mom, 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 mom. It's like, this is important to mom. And I just need to find a space to talk to her. And I love that you're doing that and that you were able to say that today. We're a family-owned company at 84 Lumber too, and being a family-owned business and putting family first is the key to any success of a company. And I'm sure Angela can say the same.
Oh yeah, Hill Electric's the same way. It's wonderful to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It is, yeah. And like you said, your parents, I have two. My two boys are at home. My stepdaughters are all grown. But my oldest is nonverbal. And
Oh.
so whenever I'm on the phone, he's like, is this
Nice.
even he's kinda like, "Is this a business call that mom's on? Is it not a business call that mom's on?" That type of stuff. And then my 14-year-old, I have this on my LinkedIn page, but he's now starting to appreciate what I do because we build really neat things. And so
Yeah.
now he's able
Nice.
to, I told a story. He's entering freshman year, and we live in South Florida, and so there's a lot of professional athletes' children that he plays basketball that are in sports, and so they're always kind of like, yeah, my dad's in the NFL, and so Caden, we're
Mhm.
driving one day, and he was like, yeah, so and so's, on my team, and he came up to me and he was like, yeah, my dad plays in the NFL. And I was like, oh, that's good. And I'm like, what'd you say? He was like, yeah. I was like, oh, that's cool, but my mom probably built the stadium. And I was like,
I
oh,
love that. That's
he,
awesome.
he finally gets what I do,
Yeah.
right? He's
Yeah.
proud of it. So
Yes. I love that.
cool
Oh, I
dynamic.
have
Um,
them.
are
Yeah, I'm
are
so
you one
glad
of
you
those
said that.
moms that drives around and says, I did that and I did that and I did that?
I'm not because it's an awkward thing, right? Because I'm so proud of our guys in the field and gals in the
Hmm.
field that are actually doing it too. And so it's never kind
Well,
of
I
like that.
meant like we worked on that.
We
Right.
are, right.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
so so now it's kinda like, now we're going and now they're getting to an age, where they're kinda like, "Hey, mom, did you guys build that?" Because they've grown up with like,
Nice.
Mm,
"Oh, we're going to the science museum on a field trip." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, we built that." So
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
they ask me. Now they ask
That's
me.
I
cool.
love it.
Very cool. All right, so
Yes.
let's talk a little bit about your unique. You have a unique leadership approach. I feel like, I was at a conference yesterday and I was listening to one of their HR folks, and she was explaining to me how she was leading, and I was like, "Wow, that's so unique and so different." And I know you have one too. How do you turn the unimaginable and impossible into possible, and set
Mm.
high expectations for your team?
One of the first exercises that we've done, so it's interesting because I've been on different types of teams. So moving from an operational role to now moving to more of a departmental matrix role, I start with the same thing, right? It's what can we imagine that's outside the realm of
Mm.
possibility that could never happen, and I want it to be as crazy as we could possibly make it, and let's throw it on the wall. And I say it's more for just getting it out of your head, right? Because
Mhm.
it's an obstacle. But really, what I'm doing is saying, hey, now we're going to be able to make this happen. Because if
Mhm.
we don't set outside the realm expectations, then we just get a little bit better. But if we set
Mm.
something out there that's just like, what, we've never done this before, it's crazy how close you get to it.
Yeah.
And then at that point, people have ownership, right? It's not my idea, it's their idea. And then you start seeing people get excited and you start seeing people like, hey, I never realized that this could happen. I think that's
Nice.
kind of been, can't say that's my leadership style. I think that's been Baker from the get-go, right?
Mm.
Mr. Baker
Mm.
started with a wheelbarrow and look at
Yeah.
where we are now. So I think it's just not setting expectations that limit yourself.
Nice.
Oh, I like that.
I do
Chris,
too.
yeah, Christy and I are always talking about say it out loud, manifest it. And so one of our things is we want to be on the Today Show. And that's
We
a
will
pretty
be
crazy
someday.
out there
Right.
thing. But anyways, the next thing we want to talk about, which you've already shared a lot about this, is your people and how important they are.
Mhm.
In construction, I mean, really, that is the baseline for a good construction company is your people and taking care of them and leading them in the right way. And let's talk a little bit about what your thoughts are and how Baker does this with the importance of mentorship and developing future leaders in the construction industry, because that is something that we know the next generation comes in with thought of. They just don't want to be that helper. They want to know how they can grow within the company. So share with us a little bit about your thoughts on that.
First of all, I love the industry because the people in the construction industry are genuine, hardworking people, and that's why I'm in the industry. It's not necessarily because we get to build the cool structures, but it's probably one of the only industries that I know that you really just have to show up and work hard,
Mm-hmm.
um, and want to do better, and you could be wildly successful. You don't have to have a college degree. You literally just have to show up, and live through our values of people, honor, and grit. So I love that part of it, and I think when you get those genuine, hardworking people, they want to give back, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, "Wow, I never thought that I was going to be able to." We have a thing that we've started with 10,000 keys, that I'm very passionate about in our company. I started it, and it's like, how do we get hardworking people the American dream of being able to buy a home or buy a car or whatever their dream is? And so I think in the construction industry, you get all these stories, and then people get excited about it, and they're like, "Wow, I want to be able to give back and help 5 more people develop their dreams." So there's this automatic
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
love of mentorship. It just hasn't been named. We
Nice.
had interns presentations last night that I sit in on here in South Florida, and I asked them what was the theme when you dealt with all the people at Baker and all of our coworkers, and they were like willingness to help, which was very opening for me because I was expecting, people on a grid, we care about people, safety, all of those stuff, but it was like willing to help. And so
Mm,
I think for mentorship, it's such a buzzword, but we've tried all the
true.
programs. They have kind of failed. Now we're saying, okay, pick your mentor, and mentors, pick your mentees.
Mm-hmm.
Because we now see, especially with the older generation, that it's kind of a two-way. So our
It
mentors come back
is.
and say, I learned so much from a mentee,
Yes.
that it's a two-way learning exercise. And so we've actually went away from the standard, here's the paper, here's the program, and just said, hey, when we have new talent coming in, here's your mentor, and then you could talk to them, or we can cross mentor, do a lot of cross training. But I I've had so many mentors from sports to my career. I just didn't realize I had them, right? I didn't
Oh,
Yeah.
realize that
yeah.
I was getting
Yeah.
mentored.
True. Very
And
good point.
so it's very, I feel like, organic for us to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And with we have a lot of we're builders, and so our struggle and risk at becoming
Mm-hmm.
better and better is how to replace the builders. And you'd be surprised how many of them love mentoring and say, and we're looking at this now, I don't necessarily want to run the job anymore, but I'll stick around for another 3 or 5 years to mentor people.
Nice.
Mm,
Nice.
That's where we're
Yeah, I
yeah.
at.
love that. That's pretty amazing. So
Yeah.
if someone were listening to the podcast, how would you tell them to start something more organic?
Ask questions.
Th-
Make sure that your
Great.
culture
Yeah.
is a culture that allows people to ask questions. And that was also a prideful moment yesterday listening to the interns. Like, well, you could walk up to anybody and ask them a question, and they would answer it genuinely. They would not be like, why are you asking that question? Or that's a stupid question. So I really think it starts with culture. I
Mm-hmm.
think it starts with the culture of even your seasons folks saying, hey, do you have any questions? Or
Yeah.
why don't you come along with me for the day and let me show you why we do this?
Yeah.
Because people are genuinely interested in learning. And so I really do think it starts with that culture of wanting people to help other people.
Yeah. Well,
Mm,
and be an example, right? You're helping other people and they're
yeah.
watching it. And I'm sure a lot of your other leaders are doing the same. So, one of the things we talked about before we got on, excuse me, was the importance of both men and women knowing that there are a million opportunities in the construction industry that they may not be aware of. That's really passionate for you, for me, for Angela. Um, but one of the things that we've seen as we're trying to lead more women to see the opportunities is it is different, right? It's a different approach. You have to talk to them a little differently. You have to answer different questions than you do with the boys. So let me ask you this. What's the broader impact? What do you think the broader impact is of recognizing and supporting women in traditionally male populated fields? Because we do talk about every industry, not just construction, because there aren't a lot of women in a lot of fields that are primarily male populated. So, what do you think the impact is of us women helping each other like we are today on this call?
I think it's a global impact. I think it's hard to get your arms around it because it's impactful both from an economy standpoint, from a company standpoint, and more importantly for the individual and their family standpoint. I think we have traditionally not done a good job of getting to high schools, getting to middle
Mhm.
schools and
Mm-hmm.
saying, here's an option. We go through it and I'm getting to experience it now. So with my 14-year
Yeah.
old, right, he's continually thinking about what's being put in front of him. And it's not a lot of there's great jobs in manufacturing, there's great jobs in
Right.
construction. Those aren't being talked about. So it's
Mm.
on us to make sure that we get out to the high schools. We had a few weeks ago, we had a summit with our construction managers, superintendents that came in and asked the question, at what age did you realize that you want to be in construction? And the average age was 14. And
Mm.
so if we're waiting to get to 18-year-olds, we've already missed the boat because they already have in their
Right.
mind what great opportunities are and how they want their lives. So it really is getting to youth early in 4-H or FFA or any kind of association or sports
Yes.
club and saying, there's tons of opportunities. I didn't realize it. I lucked into it, right? I went to school as a biology major. I was going to go to the med side of stuff, but um, luckily I got kind of an opportunity and said, let's go with it. And so I think it really is just education.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm.
think, we're saying because we are trade heavy that, you know, you don't have to go to college. You can start
Mm.
a job, not have to pay college, tuition
Yes.
or loans or anything like
Yes.
that, and make a great living, be able to buy a home, all the stuff that you can't even imagine. It's just not out there, right? We have to
Mm-hmm.
we have to educate that there's just opportunities, and the opportunities with the construction are huge, right? You go from
Yes.
3D modeling to
Yes.
carpentry so there's something for any skill set in the industry for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Well, let's shift back to your projects just a little bit, and you personally. How do you
Mm.
balance your individual drive and collaboration, and collaborative success on your projects? So we've talked a lot about people, but now let's talk a little bit about, how you're balancing that, your drive with the success of projects collaboratively.
I think projects, and I'll talk industry specific and then to Baker. I think the people that are in our industry or company were kind of born of the same cloth,
Mm.
right? We
Yeah,
all
salt
have.
of the earth.
Yeah, and the desire to do better and the desire to improve. We talked about sports a little bit before this. There's
Mhm.
also this competitive edge that we have, which I think
Mm-hmm.
is you'll see that through and through in construction. But what's interesting is, and we talked about it before, a lot of these leaders and folks have grown up in sports. So although you're competitive,
Mhm.
you still have to figure out how to have a team dynamic because one person's not going to build anything. And I think that just that mentality of, okay, not only does it take our team, but on our projects, we have to team with, our general contractors or construction managers, architects, the engineers. So there's this automatic need that a construction project has that you do have to interact. And so I think what we were able to do is say, okay, now that we know that, what's our role on the team and how do we show up? So if we're the experts in concrete, then we need to show up as experts.
Mm.
And we need to make sure that our part of sitting at the table is how our work affects other people. And when we take that mentality versus how does our work affect us versus how does our work affect other trades or the general contractor, we listen better. And then we become problem solvers for the whole project. And so I think it's just making sure that we one pick the right talent to begin with, but two, once we get to the project, we have a culture that says we're here because we're experts, and let's bring our expertise and let the other people that have their expertise also bring theirs to the table.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
Really
that is
great.
great.
Really great message.
I want to share that stat too, just real quick that we talked
Yeah,
about.
yeah, absolutely.
So we wanted to talk about the sports and the correlation because it's so important. And I recently saw a post from Ernest and Young Global, and they reported that over 90% of women in C-suite positions have a sports background, and that's just what we talked about here today. So, just involving yourself more and just whether you're in school, high school, or college, check out that sports. You never know
Right.
where it might take you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we,
Lifelong lessons for sure.
we've heard from some companies that are literally targeting sports
Yeah.
teams as they're coming out
Oh,
of
that's
college,
right. Yeah.
especially in the
We
construction industry.
So when we get resumes and stuff like that, or our interview questions always involve what activities, sports have you been involved with coming in, because it really does, that you're getting one, somebody that's determined and competitive, but two, they know how to interact within a team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
tell us, we thank you for being on today, but tell
Yes.
us how
Thank
to
you.
get a hold of, let's say we want to do business with Baker Construction. Can you tell us how to do that? Tell us how to connect with you. And then hopefully you're going to hear from a ton of people.
Yeah, would love to. So you can always go to our website, bakerconstruction.com. And so we have all of our offices. So if it's as for getting work or wanting to be recruited, go to our website. We have that available. You could also call any local offices. We still have phones and we still answer them.
Nice.
So it is something to do. And then I have a LinkedIn page, Kerri Smith. You can find me there. That answers a lot of questions, anything that you need from, hey, I'm looking for this opportunity, or I want to pick your brain. I love connecting that way too, because I also have a lot of questions. So I learn, going back to that mentorship, right? I also learn from
Yeah.
people that are contacting me. So, would love to connect with anybody.
Thank you so
Cool.
much for pouring into our listeners today. And we really appreciate
Yeah.
your wisdom for our industry.
Oh,
Thank you,
thank you guys
Kerri.
so much. All right. Bye-bye.